Welcome back, everybody. I hope in the interim you have had a phenomenal day or experience. Not always is. Sometimes it's good just to not have anything major happening, right? So we are going to be working in the center and the right. I'm actually going to put it right here. So I received a very nice compliment the other day, and I'd like to share it. Somebody said that I sounded like Bob Ross when I was signing off of my video the other day. Don't we love this? We do. Oh my goodness. So they said I sounded like Bob Ross. How cool is that? Who here? Raise your hands. Yes. Stop quilting. Stop knitting for a moment. Raise your hand. How many people here watch Bob Ross? Any Bob Ross fans? I am. I just... I don't know how good that stuff is for my brain health, but sometimes you have to do stuff that might not be great for your brain health. So I've been a little bit more organized. And that you're hearing all the noises of the box. And that I now have all my active stuff in this box here. Hold on. Hold on. Let me pause it. Sorry about that. So we're having a problem with AJ. He is eating poop and he needs to not eat poop. And we're having him his blood tested, and unfortunately, because he just ate poop, we were planning on having all of his blood tested and make sure that he doesn't have some type of nutritional deficiency. But because he was quicker than we were with the poop, I played ball with them, and we should have just stayed out there with them. It's cold. I came up here to do this. So he's not going to go get blood work today. So we'll get blood work on another day when he hasn't fasted. So let's go down there. I don't know how loud that was. You ready to play with me? Let's play. Let's set up some of these. I see X. I see H. K. Let me see. I'm gonna put some of these just outside the shot. Can be worked with. So let's just do these two. Ooh, got one right there. Well, when we end up choosing a color that needs that, we will then grab it. Oh, there's that hair again. So I'm thinking we might do some of those quiet moments. You know, those really good quiet moments where so I'm not really in the know of stuff, but I listened to Maya Bialik on her podcast breakdown. Highly recommended, by the way. This is D. Highly recommended. Oh, should make sure the whole thing is in the shot. Let me double check. Yeah, very cool. You hear all the sounds. So I don't know a lot about it. Is she a guest? Is she a guest? Is she going to be the permanent? How is all the hosting of Jeopardy working out? I think mine would be great, but I'm biased. I think she would be great at a lot of things. What I'm most excited to be able to see is I would love for her to interview David, Huberman. I think that would be a really good mix. I'll stop talking about him. It's just, there's so many really great techniques that have helped me in my life that I just can't seem to shut up about. Right? Isn't that the way it is? So now let's see what we have. We have the three girls up here. I feel like I haven't breathed. I need to breathe. We'll schedule another appointment for AJ to go to the vets, and we're having blood work done. So he's having doggy senior panel, and he's also having B12, but it has a different name to it. He has folate, which is another B. And there's something else, because if he's eating the poop because he has a nutritional deficiency, then that's one thing. And if he's eating it because it's a behavioral issue, that allows for a different way of solving the problem. So I'm interested in finding out why, so that we can address the problem as the problem is. Does that make sense? I believe that about most things. I always try to figure out what exactly am I looking to solve, and does that problem solve that thing? For example, sometimes I annoy people because I'll ask for a recommendation. For example, say I need a really good plumber. I'll ask a recommendation, and I expect the recommendation for the plumber to be based on their ability, their plumbing ability. And a lot of times somebody will say, well, they're so nice. And I think nice is good. I would like to have people in my home that are nice. But what I care most about is competency with regard to X. The example we're giving is plumbing. And it seems to really, until people get to know me, it seems to throw them off. Which I always find interesting because I think, oops, how could that throw them off? How were they looking at hiring somebody? If you're hiring somebody for a job that they're going to do, then why are we not discussing the skill sets that are required for competency of that job? How's that for going deep? Pretty chin deep, don't you think? That's too funny. Just too funny. I just finished a coaching session. I started with a coach a month ago is when, or a little over a month ago is when we met. 2 weeks ago we had our first session. I will put all of her information in the information box below. And she agreed that I can interview her when we are finished. I'm so excited. I want to interview her when we're done. I didn't even ask to interview her earlier because, but maybe I will. Maybe she is somebody I am going to instead add some things to the channel. You want to hear about it? Or do you want it to be a teaser? Oh, okay. I'll tell you then. So I'm going to interview different doctors and specialists to find out their take on brain injuries, something about brain injuries. I'm not exactly sure what the topic will be. If you have ideas, please leave them for me. My goal is to a little mess up. There we go. There we go. I don't know why I'm being so stingy. I have a whole bunch in here. So, one of the big things with regard to the brain injury is you have to learn how to view Western medicine differently than before. And there are different things that people can do as their own advocate, and there are sometimes things they can't do as their own advocate. So the idea is to meet with different doctors to find out from their point of view, what do they think it would be helpful for patients to know? If they were able to have a patient know certain things before coming into the office to make that patient a better team player with them and solving whatever the issue is that caused the person to come in to begin with. What are those things? I know some of the issues that I had with my brain injury is doctors expected me to have a victim mentality, which I don't have. And my understanding from the doctors that were willing to talk to me about it is that it threw them off, because when I was as clinical as I was about my issues, speaking about my symptoms matter-of-factly, the way that you might discuss a broken arm, one of the excuses given to me by the medical community is they couldn't help me because I was healthy, except for the brain injury, and I did not have a victim mentality, and I was eloquent. So, knowing that all brain injuries, and I know because I have one, all brain injuries do not leave you sounding non-eloquent. If that is something that, for me, I had studied that for years. My undergraduate degree is communication, in the world of communication rhetoric, meaning talking, meaning communication. Well, kind of confusing, but I felt that it was missing a lot about communication. My degree, it was rhetorical. It was a communication degree, but I felt that it was missing a lot. And so I ended up finding that the University of South Florida, that's where I went to school, had an honors program run by Dr. Joyce Swarsman. If you ever have the opportunity to meet her, absolutely do. If you ever have the opportunity to listen to her speak about pretty much everything, including waiting for water to boil, go. She was running the program at the time. It was called, and it's still called, I believe, Suncoast Area Teacher Training. And I was in a program where for a year and a half, I learned how to teach, teaching people how to teach. So that in the summer, for a 2-week period, different teachers would come in from all over the country, and we would teach them how to teach, how to be respectful of different learning styles, how to understand the best ways to possibly explain something so that somebody that thinks different than you, that you are in charge of making sure becomes educated, can. And throughout that process, I changed, had to change. It was part of what I signed up for. I learned how to get rid of almost all of my ums. I learned what was distracting to the listener. Didn't mean to end that in what sounded like a question mark. I learned how to pay attention to what mattered to the listener. That's a little bit better. I learned about positive phrasing, telling people what you want them to think or feel, and how to make statements that highlight the incongruity between what somebody says is important and the actions they are displaying, in a way that was as respectful as possible, giving people their own opportunities to figure it out for themselves, because we have a much better chance of somebody learning something if it's internalized. It was such an incredible course. I stayed in school an extra 6 months for that, to complete the course. I'm so grateful for it. I don't know what they're doing now. I don't live in Florida, in the Tampa area. So I didn't get involved in my school from, like an alumni basis. They have a football team now. I lived in a private dorm, and I was a dorm mom. And I worked pretty much full-time in school. Worked for Publishers Clearinghouse, scanning in these little stickers of people choosing a magazine that they wanted to subscribe to. It was a great experience. Some of the most valuable information I learned about communication. If anybody's heard about it, please share what you know. It's the program, the way that I'm describing. So it was a 1.5 year honors program, and they required a required an internship. Problem was that College of Communication did not have internships, but Dr. Swarsman and I did not freak out because everything is possible, everything is doable when especially when you're a college student. They give you, I figure I can make something happen. I don't have to be concerned about, I didn't have to be concerned about not having an internship because we would figure it out. That's the main point. And we did. It so happened that the College of Communication had one internship during the 4 years I was there. And even though it seemed to me as though the professor hated women and wanted us to be seen and not heard, I was accepted into the internship, and because I had the internship, I was able to complete all the exercises given to all the honor students in their internship. I was able to have a correlate experience in more of the business world versus the education world. And Dr. Swarsman's flexibility, also with me being in a different school and still meeting the requirements with the opportunities that I had available or made available, however you want to work it and say it. I was able to complete the program, but more than that, I was able to learn about communication in both a rhetorical, theoretical way and also a practical way, which I just loved. Student loans forever, it seemed, on that one. I was the first person in my nuclear family to graduate college, and so I know that families that have the college experience have a different understanding of networks, and they know how to really bring out the most in that experience. And unfortunately, that wasn't me. I didn't know how to study. I did the best I could, and pretty much a C student. I had straight A's once, though, in 4th grade. In the first days of school, Mrs. Clark, or Miss Clark, I don't know. Let's just say Mrs. Clark for now, said, "I do not give any A's. Does anybody know why?" By the way, she was my favorite teacher. I ended up going back years later when I was able to drive. She was one of the first places I went to when I was able to drive. I didn't realize that she was short. But she was my 4th grade teacher. Do you know why? And of course, in my mind, I answered the question. But in reality, I don't know if I was the student that answered it or if I was not the student. If somebody else ended up answering it, I don't know. So that's okay. Because she, go ahead, if anybody knows the answer, go ahead. Oh. Who here knows why Mrs. Clark does not give A's? Put it in the comments. Put it in the comments. Why does Miss Clark not give A's? And she doesn't. She never gave an A. Ah, did you catch it? I'm trying to give you some hints. Do that again. Miss Clark said on the first day, I do not give A's. Does anybody know why? Want to say it with me? You have to earn them. You have to earn them. She never gives A's. She doesn't give B's, C's, D's, or F's either. Every one you get, you earn. Every one you get, you earn. I had Chuck E. Cheese was one of my favorite places because I like, is it called Skeet Ball? Oh, it's only 3. I didn't need to mess that one up then. I'm doing it again, kids. Doing it again. Let's try to stay organized on this. She never gives A's. You have to earn them. And in the 3rd quarter of the school year, I had all A's. I had earned all A's and a C in social studies. I told her I wanted to learn whatever I needed to, or however I said it as a 4th grader, that I wanted to get better. I wanted to understand it more. I wanted to know what I was missing. That's not working. That is not working. I think we're just going to do some symbols. So, all A's and 1 C. Wow. That gets you some, that used to get you some tokens at Chuck E. Cheese, but not a ton of tokens. A ton of tokens. 50 tokens. If you earned, or were given, it wasn't based on the teacher, it was based on your report. Straight A's. So I worked really hard. Only time in my life I've had straight A's, except one other time I took 1 class and I got an A. So I guess I got straight A's then too. Did we count that? Come on. Countable? Oh, when I was in law school, one of the professors said A students are professors, B students are something, and C students are your very wealthy litigation rainmakers. I'm not surprised about that at all. At all. So my last semester, I'm a summer baby too. So before, leaving for school, I ended up getting my last semester. I earned straight A's. I went to Chuck E. Cheese, and I just remember having a great time and being so super happy about it. So later on in my life, before law school, actually, I was secretary for a whole bunch of years. Efficiency expert, administrative assistant. I typed a lot, and I had my carpal tunnel. It was different back then. I think you might end up hearing me say that a lot. I'm sorry. It just was. Just like when you guys get older, and you say, it was different back then. It was. And I ended up having a note taker for I think a class or two, and it really taught me that there's a whole group of people out there that learn how to read, that learn how to study. I had good teacher stories. That's where we're going with this. Good teacher stories. Who has a really great teacher they'd like to share about? Please. Hey, honey bear. Honey just got up. Are you not? You have a soft towel, not towel. You have a doggy thingy to sit on. You're not gonna sit on your doggy bed? No, you heard that. I think you should. I got it for you. Go ahead. Sit down. Go over there. She's something. George is on the comfy doggy bed closest to me. He enjoys, excuse me, walking around and walking behind me. She's smelling a chair, thinking maybe she'll jump up, but oh, did you hear that? She sat down. Wish you could hear her. Maybe I'll put the mic down here. How relaxing and great would that be? Honey's got the hiccups. You have the hiccups, my love. No. Oh. The girl's got the hiccups. They can be so painful. when I was a kid. I didn't like to read. And my sister, she was, and I believe she has consistently stayed an avid reader. Me, crazy, because I went, I took on a profession that requires massive amounts of reading, just constant, consistent. I like to learn though, and I'm really curious. And I know that there are people that are smarter than me, but I'm curious. And that usually puts me in a much better place than people who are just smart. Mrs. Potter. She became a counselor, I believe, after she left the 3rd grade class. And she ended up becoming a counselor, a high school counselor, I believe, but she was at a different school, a different high school than I went to, so I'm just working off of the rumor mill from when I was in 3rd grade. I don't know how that sounds, but that's where the information comes from. That's honey breathing. So Mrs. Potter, 3rd grade. One of my love languages is gifts. And she obviously knew it at the time because she said, if you read a book, I'll give you a gift. Wow. Okay, I can do that. Now, I didn't realize I chose Charlotte's Web, which as a little kid, that's a big book. Even as an adult, I think that's a big book. So I read the book, and other people were reading their books, and they bring their books to Mrs. Potter and say, where's my gift? She's like, I promised you a gift. But Jennifer gets a gift if she reads the book. And she said, yes, I promised Jennifer a gift. I mean, all of us were special based on what we needed to work on, and I needed to work on reading. So I remember being so excited I got the gift. I don't know at all what the gift was. I was just so excited that I was able to finish a book, and it felt very special. Mrs. Potter did that to us. Helped you feel very special. There were 2 kids. My best friend at the time was Beth. We used to wear those shirts with our names in the back. But then bad people would call you by your name, and they would use the name on the back of the shirt to act as though they knew you. And so I believe what our parents did was switch the names on the shirt so we didn't have our own names. So if somebody called us by the name on the shirt, the mosquito just flew in my face, then we knew that it was a stranger. We had that whole stranger danger thing. I think stranger danger was after my years, though. It doesn't matter. Anyway, there were these 2 kids, there were lots of kids in the class, but my best friend was Beth, and there was David and Brian were best friends with each other. This is 3rd grade, and I guess Brian liked me and David liked Beth because David would push Brian into me, and then he would kiss me. And I didn't like that at all. So I ended up going over and telling Mrs. Potter, David keeps pushing Brian into me to kiss me. And Mrs. Potter addressed Brian. I do not remember how. If anybody knows who Brian is that I'm talking about, I would love to hear from him and find out how his life is and all that. She stood up and she said, Brian, nobody wants your yucky germs. I don't know if that would work in today's world, but I can tell you, as a student and as a 3rd grader, definitely at the time, that was a great way to handle the situation. I remember respecting her. I remember people listening to her. I remember we wanted to learn from her. And so I imagine, because he never did it again, and he wasn't angry at me either, so it wasn't, you told the teacher, it wasn't any of that kind of stuff that I remember at all. Such a great way to deal with it, because for 3rd graders, of course, you know, adorable as anything. Sitting here, getting to know who we are, and so that's just part of the growing up process. If I'm wrong, let me know. Let me know if there's something about the stories that I share, if I'm missing a whole part of a whole bunch of things, and if I'm missing it, you know what I mean? Like if it's actually rude or mean and I don't understand it or whatever at the time. I know if I sat and remembered more, sat and thought more, I would probably remember more. In 4th grade, we learned about the different phases of the moon. That was a really big deal, of course. Mrs. Clark ended up, she had there was this whole like stars and universe, our galaxy class, the Milky Way, and I don't know exactly what she taught, but I remember getting really confused between waning and waxing, just like I had microscope and telescope mixed up. What's happening when you're learning? You put something in one bucket and you find out if it's right or wrong. As time goes on, to understand that as we learn more about science, whatever we thought usually changes, but that doesn't mean we were lied to. It meant this is the process of scientific research. And if you're not a person that ends up saying, okay, you guys, we have new information. How are we going to live our lives based on the new information? If instead you're stuck, well, you said this 6 months ago. Yeah. And because you ate a hamburger 6 months ago, you shouldn't be hungry today. That makes sense to me. The confusion some people are having makes me understand a little bit more about how our educational system is definitely missing the mark. I was thinking I might do another video on just critical thinking, because when I was in law school, they rip you down to build you back up into a lawyer. And that ripping down process and that building up process is teaching people how to critically think, or it's supposed to, how to weigh information, how to hopefully make good decisions, how to be mindful